In the American continent, there have been a plethora of contacted tribes, from the Guaranis in Brazil to the Aztecs and Maias in Central America to the Cherokees in the continental United States. These tribes have intricate histories, waged wars against one another, had massive kingdoms, invented impressive technologies that still surprise historians and anthropologists to this day, and have overall been a striking display of human ingenuity and organization in the face of stark difficulties as the jungle and the American wilderness could offer. But throughout all of these, one of the tribes stands out: the Comanches, warriors, bred of blood and fire. These Indians were something else. What made this tribe so much more impressive than the others? What contributed to their success? Watch until the end to find out more about what made the Comanches such a force to be reckoned with. The novel S.C. Gwynne wrote, Empire of the Summer Moon, tells the story of a little girl named Cynthia Ann Parker, who was kidnapped by the Comanches at the age of 9. She was warded by the chief of the Comanche tribe, going on to become a full-on Comanche herself. She married a Comanche chief and gave birth to 3 children, one of them being Quanah Parker, the last and greatest of the Comanche leaders. The incredible story of Cynthia Ann and her son Quanah is explored with excellence in the novel, written to show the story of the Comanches in the background of the conquest of the American Midwest. The book explores the complicated relationship between the Comanche tribe and the American settlers. First, the Indians played a key role in holding off the settlers. Afterwards, they came to aid them. If you go back through Comanche history, you see that they were the ones who stopped the Spanish from coming north, he explains. Why did the French stop coming west from Louisiana? Comanches. Here was why the West Coast and the East Coast settled before the middle of the country. Here was why there was basically a 40-year wait before you could develop the state of Texas or before other plain states could be developed, says the author. The Comanche tribe was different from all the other tribes in the plains. Their culture didn't center around religious practices and development of social structures as much as other Indian cultures had. The Mayans and the Aztecs were known to study engineering, astrology, agriculture, and animal husbandry. There were massive temples built in Central and South America, constructed by a variety of tribes. When the Spaniards arrived in the coast of Central America, they were met with a complex civilization of Indians with their practices, some of which were absolutely barbaric, like the sacrifice of children and of full-grown men to the gods. The Comanches did no such thing. They weren't sitting around to study the movement of the stars. Theirs wasn't a culture of contemplation, of engineering and complex mathematical thinking. They weren't weaving any baskets or constructing elaborate ceremonies. They were bred for war. The Comanches remind anthropologists of the Spartans in their way of life. From an early age, the boys were taught to fight with lance and bow, and to hunt the massive buffalo of their plains, their main game. When they were teens, these boys were already warriors. A culture of impressive valor, with a mindset geared for war and conquest. The Comanches were not known for their patience or their rapport, but for their absolute ruthlessness and their resolve for war. The Comanche way of life changed dramatically when horses were introduced to the American equation, reportedly during the Pueblo Revolt of 1680, but perhaps even earlier than that. When the horse became a known factor in the plains, the Comanches took to using the animal to such a degree that anthropologists believe they parted ways with the Shoshone and moved south to search for more horses, instead of moving in search of more buffalo herds. The Comanches have the longest documented existence as horse-mounted plains people. There were Comanche warriors riding horses before the Cheyennes left their mud huts. Their original migration took them to the southern Great Plains, into a sweep of territory extending from the Arkansas River to central Texas. The earliest references to them in the Spanish records date from 1706, when reports reached Santa Fe that Utes and Comanches were about to attack. In the Comanche advance, the Apaches were driven off the plains. By the end of the 18th century, the struggle between Comanches and Apaches had assumed legendary proportions. In 1874, in recounting the history of the Southern Plains, Texas Governor Domingo Cabello y Robles recorded that some 60 years earlier, around 1724, the Apaches had been routed from the southern plains in a 9-day battle at La Gran Sierra del Fierro, the Great Mountain of Iron, somewhere northwest of Texas. There is, however, no other record, documentary or legendary, of such a fight. They were formidable warriors who developed strategies for using traditional weapons for fighting on horseback. Warfare was a major part of Comanche life. Comanche raids into Mexico traditionally took place during the full moon, when the Comanche could see to ride at night. This led to the term Comanche Moon, during which the Comanche raided for horses, captives, and weapons. Comanche raids, especially in the 1840s, reached hundreds of miles deep into Mexico, devastating northern parts of the country. When the Comanche moon rose on the sky and the plains shone with the silver glow of the night's brightest light, men locked their doors, women hid their children, and towns held their breath, for they knew that the night riders might come, and they came for one thing only: blood. The Comanche way of life came to an end almost exclusively by their own hands. With the arrival of American settlers, there was an ever-increasing demand for a commodity the Comanches were more than capable of providing: buffalo hides. They noticed that buffalo, however strong and capable a beast, weren't the brightest animals in the world, and they wouldn't flee from dangers they couldn't see, even if a fellow beast died right next to them. Armed with the knowledge of the buffalo behavior patterns, the Comanches became a never-before-seen massacre of buffalo, falling over 31 million of them before it was all said and done. The American government not only noticed the decline of the buffalo population, but actively embracing it, noticing what the Indians didn't, that the end of the buffalo was the end for the Comanches too. One dependent on the other, and by buying the hides of the fallen animals from the tribesmen, the government provided the demand for the death of the animal that sustained the populations on that region. The Comanches are still around to this day, and their tribes have preserved their way of life and practices for the most part in reservation in the U.S. plains. They no longer raid cities at nights on full moons, but they still practice the religious and tribal ways of their ancestors, fighting to keep their tribe alive and connected to its roots. Thank you for watching today's video. The Comanches are a fascinating people to study and an important chapter in American history. If you're interested in more videos like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel, activate the notifications so you don't miss new uploads, like and share this video with your fellow history nerds, and tell us in the comments what you want us to talk about next. Bye for now.